Good evening, good morning, good night, good second breakfast, whenever you are, wherever you are. My name is Laura González, and I welcome you to Lunatic Mondays on CSNP, the Circle Sanctuary Network podcast. For the last time, Circle Sanctuary Network podcast, because next, in a few days, it will be Circle Podcast. We are evolving. And tonight I have a guest whom we were just laughing behind the scenes because we never met until today, but a lot of people assume that we must be besties. I think after tonight's show, we shall be. Lilith Dorsey, MA, has focused their study and practice on Celtic, Afro-Caribbean, and Indigenous American spirituality. They are the filmmaker of the experimental documentary Bodies of Water, Voodoo, Identity, and Transformation, and choreographer, performer of jazz legends Dr. John's Night Tripper Voodoo Show. They have long been committed to providing accurate and respectful information about magic and are proud to be a published Black author of such titles as Voodoo and African Traditional Religions, Love Magic, the best-selling Orishas, Goddess, and Voodoo Queens, and the award-winning Water Magic. And of course, they're here with us tonight to chat about their book, Tarot Every Which Way, Unlock the Power of the Cards for Spellcraft and Magic by the one and only Lilith Dorsey. I am so thrilled to finally getting to know you and that you're on the show, that you say yes. And so welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. We should have met each other before then, but I'm so glad it's happening now. And I can tell we're already linked kindred spirits going on here. So this is going to be wonderful.
I think it is going to be wonderful, and I'm gonna tell the people the little chisme, the little gossip, that it's funny because a lot of people would ask me like, oh, the work of Lilith Dorsey, like what like Lilith Dorsey say, and you know each other, right? Like you're friends, like you must know each other. And I was like, no, we've never met. And, if I have $1 for every time somebody assumed that I practice Santeria or voodoo, I will be a millionaire, I swear. It took forever and a half for me to instruct people and be able to share. I'm indigenous from Mexico, and I don't know a li- I know a little bit about voodoo and Ifa mostly because I have to learn it. So I could tell people I don't practice this and know what this was. Um, and I learned the theories, but we were laughing before the show started because we're both brown women who fight and do a lot of activism. And I'm like, that's why people thought we knew each other. So let me ask you about you. Like you just told me you're from New York originally, but you live in New Orleans. Um, how did you get into this world of magic?
Well, I mean, my name is really Lilith. So I suppose on that note, I always had this kind of like connection to the goddess and the divine feminine in specific. My parents just were all over the place, but I went to Lutheran school, and I love telling this story about when I was 4 years old. I was so into the divine feminine, they made me the Virgin Mary, and they gave me a real baby for the nativity play. And I sat on stage for 2 hours keeping this baby happy. I was like, I really thought I was the Virgin Mary. I was like, oh, good baby. So
That is fantastic.
so yeah, I just always tried to find the divine feminine, and then I had a lot of trauma growing up, so I think that I needed magic. I needed magic to keep me safe, growing up in Brooklyn, and it was just a wild time. That's my short version of it, but it was intense. And I think that I learned just how to protect myself, how to see around corners. I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday about like when you grow up with a lot of trauma, you have to know what's in somebody's pocket, because I was doing a book signing and I was talking about this book and I said, okay, well, you can put a piece of carnelian in your pocket. And the guy was like, whoa, I have carnelian in my pocket. So I was like, well, yeah, like I'm psychic. That's my gig. That's what I know. I mean, I'm not saying I could always see what is in someone's pocket, but if something's near me, there's part of me that just pays attention to that and understands what it is.
Yeah. And how much did it irritate you as a child? I don't know if this happens to you, but this is one of those things that I experienced a lot, and I still do sometimes. When you're with a group of people and somebody new comes to the group, and you immediately can tell, like, nope, this is not gonna work. And then you keep yourself, and then the whole group is like, what's wrong with you? Why you act like that? And then times give you the proves you're right, which is not, it's not pleasant, but it happens a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does. You're right. It still happens to me now. I'll meet somebody and I'm just like, there's something wrong with that person, and you're right. People, there's been a lot of really bad people in the community, and I'm always like, this person is terrible. Do not listen to this person. Do not follow this person. And everybody's like, oh, Lilith's a hater, and then they'll end up going to jail for something. And I'm like, I told y'all, at the very beginning that this was not a good person, but people don't want to listen. So I don't know. I really, but the other thing happens too, though, sometimes you meet somebody and you're like, this is a great person and I really like this person. And I love those times, where instantly, even if they're not really interacting with you, that somebody really is cool and nice and kind and powerful. And sometimes you get to meet them and be friends with them, like you. Yay.
Yeah, this feels like is one of those moments that is instant, and in a way gives credit to all the people that asked me, right? Like, how come you're not friends, or do you know each other? Like, yeah, I guess you saw it before we did. Um, so you grew up with the name Lilith. You grew up with this magical gifts and abilities and capacities to, like, perceive and look around the corners and all of that. When did you start playing with the cards? When did you get into tarot?
I mean, my mother had a hardcover first, she still has it, hardcover first edition of the Thoth Tarot deck. So, I could read really early just because I loved these pretty books. So I was like, can I look at that pretty book? And she'd let me look at it while she was there or whatnot, But I finally got my cards around, I think, 11 or 12. That was my first deck. I had the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And I think that's a good beginner deck for people, And then I was just obsessed with it. I had to do readings about everything, like, does this person on the bus think I'm pretty? Things like that. Just asking over and over again, which is obsessive and not the best way to learn, but it does give you understanding of, oh, okay, well, does this person like me? I get the Three of Swords. Well, chances are they like somebody else and this is not going to work, like, so you just sort of get an understanding about how it plays out. And I think that wasn't the best beginning, but it wasn't the worst either, because I did get very familiar with the cards. I got very familiar with, just by the fact that I was doing it, 3, 4, 5 times a day about different little things in my life.
And the other thing that I want to ask, and of course, because you wrote the book about goddess orishas and queens, and I haven't read it yet. I will. I'm going to ask Llewellyn to, you know, since they're so generous. I am.
It's a Wiser book, just so you know.
Wiser. Okay.
So ask Wiser.
I'll ask Wiser. Yeah, and then maybe we can have you back in the show to talk about.
Yeah.
But I am not a practitioner of these practices, religions, lifestyles, whatever you call it. My actual deep introduction into how people actually practice is funny. This is so funny. It was my very first interview of 2024 with Mawiya Bomani, wrote Conjuring the Calabash, and that is like my introduction to these practices. They're beautiful, and I think they're very intense, like every day you have to tend the altar, every day you have to change the water, every day. So two questions. And this is the funny thing, right? Because I'm not a practitioner of that, but every time I hear somebody saying that an Orisha is a goddess, I'm like, excuse me, they're not a goddess, they're an Orisha. And I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to defend people not to, step over the line of knowing something. So I guess my question is, do you find the intersection between Orishas being nature, powers, forces of nature, and then gods and goddesses, or Am I wrong, and should I stop defending something I don't know?
No, I mean, I think a lot of people in the tradition are still Christian. So this concept of goddess is something that they don't really jive with. And that's why the book is called Orisha's Goddesses and Voodoo Queens, because in my head, those are two different things too.
Mm-hmm.
Orisha comes from Ori, which means head, and Sha, which is the word Ashe, which a lot of people talk about. It's the universal energy of things. So this is like the universal energy of your head. And let's see how I can explain this simply. Everything has Ashe. So if I am a daughter of Oshun, which I am, for example, she owns my head, which means I'm a representative of Oshun in everything that I do. But it also means that her energy is in an orange, her energy is in the river, her energy is in gold, her energy is in anybody who's dancing. She is there. So it's more than a goddess almost, because she is in all of these things, both natural, human, physical, otherworldly, all of those things together. So I think that, yeah, just calling it a goddess is an oversimplification. And I think that when people sort of do that, they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, because you've got something that is an African concept. It's such a, and I'm sure you get this too with indigenous Mexican concepts. They're so different than this European kind of concept. And you can't just say it's the same kind of thing, or I'm going to worship it in the same way, because it's not. It's a completely different people. It's a completely different land. It's a completely different lifestyle. So I agree with you, and you can tell people not to do that because it's not great.
And Lilith just give me permission to do that. So watch out. I am, for those people who are not looking at the video, I just drove my jaw to the floor and I put my hands on my face, because two things blew my mind just now. The first one, which, oh my goddess, I'm like, oh, you say they live in your head. And I love that. And I don't know, and I don't want to know if it is because it is an archetype, because you think about it, because they actually live in our brain, in our head. I don't want to know the answer.
Okay.
I just know you said they live in our head. And to me, that is yet another confirmation that these entities are within us, right? But the second thing that blew my mind, because I never knew what Ashe meant. And in the Nahuatl tradition, the Tolteca, Mexica, Nahuatl tradition, that is what I follow, we have this concept called tonal. And tonal is the living force energy that is everywhere, right? And then you have deities, Tonacatecutli, Tonacasiwat, and Mictlantecutli, Mictacasiwat, and a whole bunch, over 1,400 different energies that represent natural phenomena, natural occurrences. And then the names of the so-called deities start becoming so very specific, because they have a function. So they describe a function of nature. But that tonal, that life essence, is everywhere, right? And I have said in my classes so many times exactly what you said. To call them a goddess is to put them on a little box that limits them, when they are this like huge, giant energies of nature and within us and around us the whole time. There is no separation between the divine and us, because it's within us. And at the same time, because I'm some kind of an atheist, but God is, so like I flip flop, and it's just beautiful to know that it's everywhere, and at the same time not in a specific space. That is so beautiful. I know this conversation was going to be fantastic. Let's put a pin on that, because I really am going to ask Weiser for that book.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to come back.
Sure.
And talk about that. And I want to learn more, even if I don't practice it. I want to learn it because it's beautiful. Let's go to the task at hand. Tarot every which way. First of all, the cleverness of the title is just like, that was all you, or that was Llewellyn, or
Actually, they probably don't want me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I had to fight for it.
yes.
Like, yeah, It was mine originally. I had done a YouTube series, Tarot Every Which Way Food, and I was going to do the whole series about like all different things for each of the tarot cards. And then I Googled it to make sure nobody else had taken it. Nobody else has taken it. And I was like, okay, this is the book I want to write. And they were like, oh, it doesn't really matter what the title is. And I'm like, no, no. This is my second book with you. It's my 8th book all over. Like, I'm going to fight for this title or we're not going to have this book. So finally they let me say it was okay. And they were like, oh, it just doesn't matter. And I'm like, it matters to me and let's have it this way. So yeah.
A name doesn't matter. You say that to a person named Lilith, and then
I know.
my names are Laura Sophia. So
Oh, beautiful.
I believe me, I know names matter. So as a tarot enthusiast, we have a similar origin story, right? I started reading when I was 16 and um, interpreting for friends and for colleagues and all that. And I've lived through tarot, and I love that you have the word here, define it as a professional witch, somebody that reads and all that. And you define all kinds of it. I'm so excited. I'm jumping all over the place. Let me breathe. So I love the book. As a person who has been reading and teaching and working with tarot for a long, long time, I'm a witch for hire. That's where I was trying to go. I call myself a witch for hire, and then I saw in the book you said professional witch, and I like that. So I might start changing how I present myself. So that was the first thing I learned from this book is like I can call myself a professional witch. But this book is so rich. This is the body of work of many, many years. This is not like 1 year you decided you was going to write this book. This, you can tell that is amassed over decades. Tell me about the inspiration. You already mentioned a YouTube series. What else inspired you to write this beautiful book?
I mean, I was a professional. I still am a professional reader. I've been a professional reader for a lot of decades. I won't tell how old I am, but it's over 3 decades now, almost 4. And so I think just understanding the cards in a deep way, sometimes you get somebody who doesn't believe anything, or you get somebody who's really young and doesn't understand the concepts, or you get somebody who's very old and doesn't understand the concepts, or someone who's disabled. Like, so there's so many different people you're trying to give messages to, and they might not understand how you're trying to explain it, but they will understand if they smell a scent, or they will understand if they have that flower in their hand, or make this recipe and eat it. They understand that card on a deeper level. So for me, it was about like trying to get to the real meaning of the cards past the words. There's a lot of words in this book, and I'll tell you exactly what each card means and how to read it and stuff like that. But then I also give you other ways to understand it. And I'm sure we've all had times where you get the same card over and over again, right? And you're like, what does this card mean? I don't understand. Well, this is how to help you better understand that card, whether it's doing a journey work or a meditation on it, or making a recipe, or playing the musical note for it and feeling how that feels in your body to get connected to it. So I just wanted to give people a whole bunch of different ways to connect, no matter where they were at.
I love it. And when you talk about practices and spells and recipes, believe me, people, I count them. There are over 70 some recipes and spells. So not only she's telling us about how to understand the card on a deeper level, how to meditate with the card, how to journey with each one of the major arcana, and there's also, and I love like the oils, and I particularly love the chariot oil because I love the chariot. When Ivo Dominguez and Madame Pamita wrote the Cancer Witch, they invited me, and I put a spell with the chariot.
Oh, beautiful.
And I think it was for protection as well. But I see your oil and I'm like, I wish I knew about this oil before I wrote that. I would have called you. But I love the oil for the chariot, and it's so useful because I'm going to be traveling this year. So I'm like, hey, let's do this. I know a friend of mine is also starting new things. And then she explains in the book, right? This oil will help you take you where you need to go. It is useful when traveling or beginning a new adventure. And I just read that sentence and I immediately put a mark in there because I'm like, I'm making this for me and my friend, or my friend and I. But there's also a whole bunch of food recipes that threw me for a curve. I was like, oh, food. Do tell. How food and tarot?
Well, I'm a big foodie, right? And we all have to eat 2, 3 times a day or more if you're a snacker like me, So I think that it's just a really simple way to have magic in your life because you got to make food for yourself to eat anyway. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be something simple like I'm putting rosemary on this for protection because I know I'm going to be going out into the world today and I'm going to be a little anxious. So I need this with me, or it could be something really complicated where I've got some of those recipes in there that are, old school ancestor recipes that I think there's an orange marmalade in there for the sun card or something, but it is going to take you all day. You've got the orange peels and the sugar and you're cooking it down and you're jarring it and all of that. So you can engage with it however you want to. But I think that food is a really good way for people to connect with their magic because it's alchemy, right? You're putting these things together. I take a pinch of this and a shake of this, and then all of a sudden, poof, I've got like a cake or a souffle or whatever it is. And it's turned into something else right in front of your eyes. So I think that that's a great way for people to connect. When I first started writing, my publishers were like, "Oh, why are you putting recipes in there? Nobody wants that." And I was like, I'm like, I don't care. That's my advice to writers 101. If you're just starting out, it's a little harder to get them to, accept that you're saying, I'm not going to change it. But when you've been around for a while and they understand you're who you are and you're not going to budge. I mean, you got to budge on some things. I think I had 8 different covers before we ended up with this one. So finally I was like, I changed it 8 times already. They're not going to let me change it anymore.
It's beautiful. And one thing that I was thinking right now when you were talking about, you have these things in your cupboard, you have these things in your kitchen, just put them together. And one of the most beautiful qualities of folk magic, indigenous magic, the magic of our people, black and brown, indigenous women and people of color, is we work with what we have. And the practicality, right? Of you already have the orange, you already have the sugar. Why not put it together in a intentional way to create your spell and then connect with the card and with the energies of those cards. But another thing that I really like and appreciate because I cannot stick with one is when you talk about the types of witches and how this book works for everybody. I've never seen such complete way of kind of like define the different types of witches. Why is that important?
I think it wasn't necessarily important. Excuse me. Maybe 20 years ago, everybody was just so happy they'd found another witch, but there's been a real modern push for people identifying what kind of witch they are. I'm a kitchen witch, I'm a green witch, I'm a water witch, I'm all these things. And I think it helps people understand their strengths and how they work and how they play and how they interact with the world. So knowing that is really helpful. And I say in the book too, you don't just have to be one kind of witch, right? You said you jump around like, I have a book on water magic. I never would have thought I was a water witch, but when I thought about it for writing the book, I was like, oh yeah, my brain is mostly water, my heart is mostly water, our planet is mostly water. Like I can't not be a water witch, right? Like all of us can't not be a water witch because water is everywhere. We need it to live. It's like one of the most important things. So like just understanding it on that level and moving forward allowed me to really, get on a deep level what I was trying to say and understand what I needed to do in order to make positive change.
Yeah. And we all are a kaleidoscope, right? We all have
Yeah.
different facets and different I was telling my husband, what was I telling him about yesterday? I think about an interview I did like 5 years ago, and I say I know it was good and I don't want to look at it because I know I'm not that person anymore and I don't want to judge Laura of 5 years. So I'm like, I know the body of work is there and it is what it is. But we evolve and change and I think it's okay and it's good that how subconsciously a lot of the times we need permission from somebody to actually understand that we could be all and many and none at the same time. And I think that when a person such as you that has become a personality because you've written all these books, puts it on a book, like, yeah, you can be any or all or none, and it's okay, or jump in between them. And I always say that the labels that are more useful are sugar and salt. And then
Yeah.
after that, they're just, like, you can have them or not. It's not necessary. You also have here some tips and tricks, and some of them I was familiar. And I'm saying this not to be like, oh yeah, I knew all about tarot. No, I didn't. You can never know everything about tarot. But there's a lot of these tricks that, yeah, like I know how to do, like to sleep with the cards and to try to get to know them better. But there are so many other things like the walk-in with the card. I was like, oh. So where does this where is that section? Tricks and I can't find it.
I think it's in the back.
Tricks and tips. Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm thumbing through it. So where that section come from? Where is that knowledge come from? And why was it important to put it in the book?
I think some of the tips and tricks come from some of the people that are featured in the book. There's all these different other famous, popular authors, witches, psychic readers, things like that. And I had done a series on my blog, Voodoo Universe, called Divination Space Station, right? Like we're the Voodoo Universe and we stop at the Divination Space Station to learn more divination tarot tricks. So, and everybody had their own take on it, So a lot of people told me things that I hadn't thought of. Like you said, it's a learning process. I'm constantly learning. So there were those kinds of things. And then there were other things about just to incorporate who I am. You mentioned the tarot walk, and I did an interview yesterday. I was talking to somebody. He said, pick your daily card, put that in your pocket, and go for the tarot walk. And I was like, that's a lovely idea. What are we focusing on today? How is our day playing out? Maybe we get the Fool card and we see a dog, and we find a sack of something at the end of our street. Or there's times where, like, if we're looking for it, then we'll find it, right? So it's giving almost a walking awake meditation, which is helpful for those of us who aren't so great at, like, close your eyes and stillness meditation, which, again, if you're a trauma person like me, close your eyes and stillness can be hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So being awake and actively seeking these things, I think, is another kind of meditation. It's like a walking meditation where you're focusing on those things.
Yeah. And what I will say is, again, as a person who has worked with tarot for some decades, it's I love new takes on things, right? And one thing that struck me as like, oh my God, this is so familiar. Because at one point you talk about teaching young people the tarot. I think it was when you're talking about the wands, and and I also have had students that are very, very young, and it's like a whole process of like, are the parents have to be involved and agree, and of course, because they're the ones paying, and but how magnificent it is to work with young people and how you learn new things from them. But as a person who has already been reading and been studying the tarot and practicing with it, when you get a new tarot book and you hear the perspective of the author, it always enriches your, not, it's like new tools on your tool belt. So I find it a great book, not just for beginners, not just for people that want to do witchcraft instead of their altars and all that, but also for a seasoned reader, because you get to see things in a new perspective, and some points and some definitions you might agree, and in some definitions you might not agree, but you learn something new and then put it in your tool belt. And I find that particularly interesting because some readers I have heard, we fall into this habit of Three of Swords. And I know I've done it because I say Three of Swords, it's a heartache, but it's not like, oh, how it hurts. It's like, oh, how it hurts. And I know I do that all the time. I find the Three of Swords. So when you read a new book, when you read the new perspective from somebody else, maybe it gives you like another alternative to like express the same thing, you know. So I find the book very rich when it comes to that, for us to find new perspectives. And thank you. You talk about absolutely all 78 cards in this book, just so you know. Every single card is talked about in this book. Why is the major arcana always the start of the tarot when there's so little? There's only 22 of them.
Because I think, I mean, actually, I didn't talk about this in the book, but they are sort of the big version of what the lesser arcana is, right? Like, so they are the everything. It's like capital letters and lowercase letters, right? Like we see it writ big in the major arcana, and then we see it smaller in the lesser arcana. And the major arcana tend to be more sort of cosmic, kind of what's going to happen or how things are going to go, or like looking at the big picture, whereas the minor arcana is maybe individual people, you know, or people that, you know, little events that are happening as opposed to the whole big picture. So we need both of them, but I think that we start with the major arcana just because, I mean, originally, right, like that's it, the major arcana was the thing.
Yeah. What I tell my students when I'm teaching my apprentices is, think about the meat of potatoes or the tofu and potatoes. Um, or, you know, these are very direct, um, like direct communication, important message needs to come to you undiluted. And then the other 56 are like the gossipers. They're the ones that bring minutia and the little details. And I find that fascinating. So thank you to Llewellyn for the book, and it's wonderful. I have to ask you the silly questions. Oh,
Sure.
where can people get your book, Lilith?
All right. Well, they can get it from Llewellyn. They can get it online at any bookseller. Most bookstores carry it. A lot of pagan bookstores carry it. You can go online and search like IndieBound or something if you want to support your local bookstore and go there and get it. But yeah, everywhere. You know, people are like, oh, where can I get it? I'm like, everywhere. I couldn't make
Yeah,
it easier for you. You know,
yeah.
Barnes and Noble. They get upset if I don't say that enough. You can get it from Barnes and Noble. So yeah. Or you could just email me, and I do sell signed copies. Yeah, things like that. I do events and stuff, so you can get a signed copy from there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I wish I had a signed copy. Well, we will cross
We'll
paths.
fix that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else that is very important about this wonderful book that I haven't asked you yet?
Let's see. I mean, I think you covered all the things. I did want to say, you said it's good for people that are just starting or people that are, you know, been reading for decades, you know, and I think all my books are really like that, but especially this one. It's not like a big heavy book where you have to read it from start to finish. It could just be like, oh, I'm walking down the street and I found a chariot card. Let's see what Lilith says about the chariot and go into that, you know, because that's happened to me a few times where I'm just walking along the street, or, you know, you find a deck and it's missing a card. What card is it missing? What is that card? You know, so those kinds of little significances that pop up throughout your day, you can check it out, or you can read it cover to cover if you're just starting and you want to understand all these different cards. And I think it would make a great daily practice to go through at least the major arcana, doing either the meditations or making an oil or listening to the musical notes every morning to see how that sort of vibes with your day. So there's lots of things to learn in the book, but there's also lots of stuff to do. I'm always about the actionable things. I'm not, if you have a problem, you don't want to sit there going problem, problem, problem. You want to go, oh, okay, if I make this oil and light this candle and leave these offerings and, you know, meditate on it, hopefully I'll find a solution.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Acting accordingly through or magic. This is not
Mm-hmm.
just about lighting the candle, but it's also about walking the walk. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I asked you what else I haven't asked you that is important, and I just remember something that you mentioned in the book, and I so wholeheartedly agree that there is such things as too many readings. There's a whole section on ethics and advice and all that. Just tap a little bit into too many readings.
Oh yeah, I've had so many clients that want to ask. I had one client, this was a long time ago, maybe 25 years ago, but I had one client that was calling me for readings, you know, 3 times a day. Where's my girlfriend? Where is she now? Where is she now? Like, you know, is she cheating on me? Where? And then I went to my priestess and I visited her and I said, this guy keeps calling me. He's getting 3 readings a day. And she's like, what? He's calling me 2 or 3 times a day. So he was like getting like 6, 7 readings a day between the two of us. And you're not going to get an answer. You know, I mean, you know, Crowley said specifically in the talk, there's certain cards that are like, put it away. You can't do a reading right now. And I found that that's very helpful. It might be your own mindset that you can't hear anything or you're just in panic mode and the cards are not going to be helpful to you because you're not going to be able to understand what they're saying. Or it could just be that the universe doesn't have an answer for you right now. You know, so often, and I don't know if I put it in the book, but so often I think about the butterfly effect, right? Like one little butterfly changes everything. So maybe the universe doesn't know whether or not your girlfriend's cheating on you right now. She has to wait for a butterfly to land on her hand to know that she's going to get off with your best friend. So you don't know yet.
Yeah.
So you should wait.
And there is addiction. There is also personalities. And the fact that the cards sometimes they say, did I stutter? Like I told you 2-3 weeks ago. And what I tell my clients is in my opinion, a healthy rhythm will be like a month in between a reading. That's my opinion. You do you, boo. You know, that is my motto. You do you, boo. But it's also like taking medicine. We're going to compare a little bit like with modern medicine, right? If you go into any given treatment, you're not going to feel good the day that you take the first pill. Your body needs to intake the chemicals. Your body needs to act and react, and then you will start feeling better. Well, the same happens with a tarot reading, in my opinion, again. If you get the message, but you don't act accordingly to that message, if you don't work to make it happen or don't work, so it just passed you by, then you get a reading for nothing because you're not acting on it, you know. So thank you for doing that and for putting it in the book. And now for real, we're going to close. I just want to remind people to give the authors reviews. If you buy from the big online one, give a review. If you go to Goodreads, give a review. All you have to do is don't write an essay like I did on my first review ever that I thought I needed to tell you everything about it. No, you can just go and say, I read the book, I think it's great. That's it. It helps them a whole lot. And that, of course, helps them sell their books, and then they can sit down and write more books. And in that breath, help me out. You can find me at bluewitch.org, bluewitch.org. You can hire me for readings. You can hire me for cleansings. You can hire me for energy work and all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, I do offer online classes and goddess circles. My goddess circles are not gender. Anybody and everybody can come to the goddess circles. They happen once a month. And the Colonizing the Goddess series that just came to an end last week. It was the end of year 1 on the Colonizing the Goddess series. We're going to have a year 2 that will begin on January. If you didn't cut the last year, you can buy it on demand at a reduced price and then get to come with us for year 2. We're going to start working with other goddesses and some queer deities, some kind of like non-binary deities that exist. And there's going to be year 2 of the Colonizing the Goddess, and then there's going to be a year 3, just so you know. We're going to be doing the Colonizing the Gods. We're going to move a little bit away from the feminine, but that is not until 2026. You can also find me in person if you're in Chicago. I will be offering all kinds of workshops throughout 2025, all focused on like indigenous deities and how to bring the practice, like Lilith was saying, right? Like with the book, you have to bring it to practice, integrate it into your life. And all of those good things you can find at bluewitch.org. Or if you like this work, you can always Venmo me or tip me or whatever. You can find that on my website, on my page, Tarvalora. Venmo is Blue Witch and Zelle is Blue Witch, is bluewitch.org, and so is PayPal. And with that said, what are you doing on the next year, Lilith? Where are you gonna be doing presentations, workshops, classes?
All right, on. Well, they can always find my schedule on lilithdorsey.net. Yeah, that's what it is. And I mean, I've got a lot of exciting classes coming up. I am the featured artist for a local community garden, and we're going to be doing a magical journaling for the ancestors workshop. And we're also going to be doing a, sort of arts and crafts, creating things for the pollinators. I love the bees, right? I'm such an Oshun. So I'm doing that. We have in the works, it doesn't have a date yet, but we are in the works for both a tarot dinner here at the Vampire Apothecary in New Orleans, and also a rock and roll ritual seance at the Vampire Apothecary. I just settled that yesterday, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm still doing online classes. You mentioned you're in Chicago. My co-host Jason Winslade is also in Chicago. We do an online YouTube show called The Pop Culture Show, where we look at all different kinds of pop culture and the occult and crossovers and things like that. And yeah, I'm here for readings. I'm here for all those things. Just check out my website, check out my blog, Voodoo Universe. I'm on all the social media, all the things. So you can find me. Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, Jason in Chicago. Of course, who doesn't know Jason in Chicago? Being part of the community and the full moon jams and all that kind of stuff for
Yeah.
as well. All right, folks, thank you for listening. Like I told you earlier, we have some changes coming to Circle Center Enable Podcast. He will be now Circle Podcast starting on January, and some changes on programming, but we're still going to have Circle Talk. We're still going to have Sons of the Pagan Pride, Pagan Tribe. We're going to have Paganos del Mundo twice a month on Spanish and Portuguese, and Lunatic Mondays goes to one show per month. So instead of two shows, we're doing one show per month now. So, better quality shows, people more interesting people. I mean, it's just, I have to be more selective because instead of two interviews, I can do only one. So it's like, ugh. But good things coming ahead. Thank you, Lilith, so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you and appreciate so much that Llewellyn gave you your book, because that gave me an opportunity to get to finally meet you, which the universe was already working on. And so thank you for being here, and I'll leave you the microphones so you can say goodnight to your audience today.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to me. Thank you for reading. Thank you for supporting me. It means the world to me. And you have no idea. I still feel sometimes like I'm a little tiny kid all alone practicing magic in my bedroom. But now I know that there's a whole community out there to support me, and it warms my heart. So blessings to everybody. And I really do appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Likewise, I appreciate your teachings and our newfound friendship that will
Yes.
continue. And to everyone, my name is Laura González. And never forget that you are loved. Bye-bye.